Hey, Dan Lucinski, Dark Angel Cutlery. Haven't done a YouTube video in a minute, so I wanted to come online and just say hello to everybody and show you all what I'm working on. I was on earlier today on Facebook Live, and as much as I don't like using that app, I've got a lot of followers there and I like sharing my work. So I was on earlier and I had kind of a larger pre-cut piece of steel that was something like this, which is what I use for cleavers. And I did some heat, beat, and repeat, and came up with this nice full tang Bowie, nice swept handle. I pre-drill my holes in a lot of these Bowies just because it's a lot easier when the steel's at an annealed state to produce a nice full tang pinned handle. So this is what I got. It's 80CR V2, it's 1/4 inch thick, and I believe this was a 2-inch wide piece of steel when I started. It's a little bit wider now, probably about 2.5. Nice swept look to it. Point the tip of the blades right in line with the handle, which is what I like. The nice clip point, perfect Bowie style for me. Love these clip point Bowies. The other one I was working on was a Bowie I had started that really didn't come to completion. It was just kind of really heavy, and I said to myself, well, I'm going to go back and grind after, and I'll grind out the profile the way I want it, but I really didn't get to that. I felt like I needed to go back and get more out of the steel and maybe make a little bit bigger of a knife, something a little more slender and a little sleek. So this is going to be an encapsulated tang or a hidden tang into a a square stock of maple burl or maybe some Amboya burl. I've got a couple nice pieces. So the ricasso area is going to kind of get ground out on the grinder and get shaped up for the final shape. I'll also shape up the shoulders of the above the tang here for final fit up of a guard, and this will get a nice cross guard, probably a nice shaped guard. I've got some mild steel I was thinking about forging out for the guard, but I've also got a nice piece of Damascus, so we'll see what we end up using. But should make a nice hidden tang Bowie. I've made a few of these. We got a nice piece of stag that would go on here real well, but we'll see. This is 1084, the other one's 80CR V2. Also started with 1/4 inch steel. This was a little bit narrower, but came to a nice Bowie profile. Really like this one. I've made a few Bowies with this style of profile, a little bit smaller than that monster chopper, but good work utility Bowie. Good all-around knife, classic design. So as you can see, the forge is running right now, and I've got a piece of 22-layer Warkanomi, which is a Hitachi white core. I use the Hitachi blue core usually. The Hitachi white core is a little bit finer of a grain of steel, and yeah, the 22-layer just reveals beautiful lamination lines in it once it's finished. Before I put this in the forge, I took an angle grinder and I ground lines horizontally across the blade, and that kind of, when it's forged out, it reveals those layers. So in the end, we'll have this nice wavy pattern in the layers on the sides of the blade, if it works out the way I hope it to. So we'll see. But let's get hit. I've got a lot of extra material in the tang there. Before I put this in, as well as cutting those grooves in the layers diagonally, I also took, horizontally, but I also took the angle grinder and made notches where I wanted the shoulders of the tang to meet the blade. That gives me the ability. I know a lot of guys will say, why wouldn't you just hit it on the side of the anvil? Well, why wouldn't I just grind it with the angle grinder from there with the grinder anyway? Always 9 ways to skin a cat. Just the way I did it. So having those notches cut gives me a good point of reference of where the tang will start and where the blade will start. If I had not done that, I probably would have even, you know, moved those lines a little back when I hit them on the anvil, because I realized I got a lot of meat there for a tang. But that's fine. I might just make it a through tang and go all the way through the handle rather than a partial tang. Got plenty of steel to work with. It's just going to be a massive Bowie. This was a 16-inch piece of Japanese layered steel. You know, beautiful piece of steel. Buddy had bought it for me a while back to make him a culinary knife, and just realized it's just a real big heavy piece of steel. Plus I had a really nice Damascus billet, and I said, hey, how about we make this out of Damascus, and I'll use this for another project. So I traded him the steel that he had purchased for the project with the Damascus that I had, and here we go. So we'll make a nice killer Bowie out of it. It's gonna take a lot of hitting to get it where I want it, though, because there is a lot of steel here. Keep it hot. So I'll show you in the next cycle what I got so far. I was already out here for a few hours earlier today, and my arm's feeling it, so I might just work this tang in this video, and we'll come back and do a little bit more work in the future. We'll see how much I can get out of my arms. Remember to let the hammer do the work. Before I go in for a few more hits, I'll show you what I'm working on. It's kind of a lame video if I'm over there hitting the whole time and I'm not showing you what I got. We'll get there. So when I started, this was about half as long, and as you can see, I've narrowed everything down and drawn it out. My rule of thumb is going to be a killer big Bowie. I've got a lot of shaping to do though, and a long way to go before I'm anywhere where I need to be with this. I might even take some length off this, we'll see. Like I said, it's going to be probably closer to something like a short sword than a Bowie when I'm done. But my rule of thumb with an encapsulated tang or a hidden tang is 3/4 of the length of the handle is where the tang should end. We usually put a pin into the handle about halfway down the handle. Any force from your hand grip, your hand is usually up toward the guard when you're gripping for a swing or a chop on anything with like a certain amount of force, and it's usually your stronger fingers up in the top is where all that pressure, that strain is going on the knife. With a tang that's 3/4 of the way through the handle on a treated piece of handle material or a stabilized piece of handle material, you're really, I mean, it's going to be so solid. I mean, just seating a tang into a piece of stabilized hardwood, it's just, it'll be strong as the steel. So, anyway, in my experience, but back at it, I got a lot of hitting, a lot of straightening. And as I was saying earlier, the lines that I cut with the angle grinder will expose those layers in the steel. So. It's almost like taking a piece of San Mai and turning it into a piece of Damascus, because when we forge that back out, we'll expose those layers in the core, and it should look beautiful. It's making the most of a piece of steel. So I think the tang is almost where I want it. I'm not too worried about the thickness of the tang, more so the length and the profile shape of it. Because when I go and I grind, I do my preliminary grinding prior to quench, I'll get my final profile in. So really we want just a rough shape of the profile or the design of the blade, which should be pretty easy to do. Losing a little pressure too on the gas. I think we're coming to the end of this tank. Like I said, I was forging earlier and I really dug into this tank, but also it's really cold out and propane gets really frosty in the cold, so. Give this tang a few more hits, and then we'll focus on maybe drawing out the tip a little bit with what we have left in the propane tank. I don't think I'm going to be switching a tank out tonight and doing a lot more on another tank. So I'm happy with the tang where it's at now. I don't think I have a lot left in this propane tank. It's on its way to die. But we can flip this around. Maybe we can get a little shape into the bevels and into the width of the blade, try to widen it up. I might only have like 1 or 2 more heats left on this tank. Either way, I'm really happy to have the opportunity to get a little bit more out of this tank and get that tang to its final profile. Because from here on, it's just shaping the blade and getting that profile down in the blade. Then I can clean it up. Next heat, I'll be stamping it, quenching it. Some hits. Alright, so just with a few hits on that heat, you can see the blade start to swoop out a little bit and take its shape, and that's perfect because that's what I want to do. I think my propane tank's on its last legs. We might get 1 or 2 more heats out of this, hopefully get a little more shape in the blade. Really just got to break up that gas in there, get it flowing. You notice a lot of those hits I gave at that last cycle were all in the horn of the anvil. The shape of the horn of the anvil will really draw out and spread that steel in different directions. Hitting it on the flat of the anvil will give me more controlled strikes and allow me to use the hammer to do most of the moving. And that's great if I'm just flattening, just trying to shape some flat edges. But if I really want to push steel and move it efficiently in different directions, I'm going to use the shape of the anvil. happy with that. Now the thing I consider when I'm working on this steel in particular is that this has 22 layers in it. So 22 layers of steel. So there's a core to this steel, and every other one of those layers has some width. So when I'm forging and hitting, especially on bevels, I'm squashing out those layers. Now I'm making all those outer layers thinner, but I'm also making the core thinner. So I don't want to squash that out a lot, because when I go on the grinder and I go to grind down to that core to reveal the core of the laminated steel, if it's squished out, it's going to be hard to track that core and make sure it lines right down the middle of the blade. So when you're hitting on the anvil and pounding, a lot of those layers are moving a little bit with each hammer strike. Sometimes they go out of alignment. So that's why I take my time making sure the blade is very straight and making sure all those layers are right in alignment, because they've been squished out thinner and they've been hit a lot. But when I go to grind and go to do my reveal of my core, I want to reveal core smoothly all the way down. So when you look at the bevel of this Japanese layered steel, you're going to see nice even layers as it's ground back, and it'll look great. And even where that's cut, where those lines were cut in, hopefully we'll see some of that, some wavy in those lines, just where those strikes were made, where those grind lines were made. Hopefully produce a nice looking blade. Yeah, so that's the idea. Grind some away, forge it out flat again. As long as I don't grind away what I forged out flat, it'll produce a very interesting looking blade. So fingers crossed I'm successful with what I tried to do. You know, I can grind away a little bit and do a quick acid etch and see where the layers are. And then I could always go back in if I have to and try to repeat my process and bring it back down. But like I said, the more I hit, the more I squash out and thin it. And the harder it will be to track that core. So I don't want to do that too much. And like I said, this is layered steel. And the more I reheat and manipulate and reheat, I change the grain of the steel. Plus, I jeopardize possibly delaminating the steel. And I don't want to do that. So we're going to let it cool very slowly here on a fire brick. That'll allow it to kind of normalize. Normally I stick it in some sand outside, but it's really cold outside. And I don't want to shock it and bring it down to ground temperature too fast. But I think in here next to the forge, it'll allow it to cool very slowly. Sometimes I'll even put it on top of the forge or inside the forge, and as the forge cools, the steel will too. I think I'll be fine next to it, next to the forge on the fire brick there. Thanks for watching. Dan Lucinski, Dark Angel Cutlery. I love you all. If you're like my videos and you want to see more of them, I hate to be one of these guys, but like and subscribe to the video. I want to come back. I want to know you like me. So, sorry, I didn't know you that. All right, take care. I'm out. Peace.